It's great to be back helping out with Big Bear. Um, and welcome to everyone. Really, really delighted to share this time with you here today. And I want to invite you actually a couple of things before we get too settled in. I want to invite you to grab a pen and piece of paper. And it can just be something small. Oh, look, Brittany saw the instructions. Yay! and um, and it doesn't need to be like a lot. We're going to do the practice a little differently today. We're going to kind of like crowdsource our practice a little bit today. So I'm going to ask you to bring in an equanimity phrase that I'll talk you through, like how we're going to work with that. Um, and I also want to really invite you to notice that you have a body, to take care of your body, to do whatever you need to do to, be to cool off, to warm up, to be comfortable wherever you're seated. You are always welcome to have your Zoom camera off if that makes it more comfortable for you. It's also, just to be completely transparent, it's really helpful for me to have at least a few people with their Zoom cameras on so that I can actually see, how people are responding and all of that. So both things are true. You're welcome to, and it's appreciated if some people have their cameras on. So um, and then also, if you'd like to, a really nice thing to do can be to grab a candle and light a candle during this time, just to mark this session for yourself, your own practice of honoring this time together. So if you'd like to grab a candle and light it, you are invited to do that. Yeah. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes here at first, and then we'll go into working with a practice together, and then we'll practice, and then we'll have some time for questions and discussion. So I don't know if any of you have read this book. It's by her name is Vanessa Machado de Oliveira, and the book is called Hospicing Modernity. Hospicing Modernity. So like hospice, like where someone goes for death care, and modernity as in like our modern world. And I really recommend this book. It's not necessarily an easy read. I actually listened to it, and as soon as I finished it, I started listening to it all over again. It's like I think I need to like hear this again. And one of the things that she talks about is, there's nothing quite like the realities of climate change to show us so clearly that our so-called developed country, right? That the whole idea of development, a developed society, a developed civilization with all of our modern comforts and conveniences, that we've messed up the planet pretty bad, right? It's like no illusions about that, right? Do you remember hearing this statistic? I hope I'm not the first person to share this with you, but I remember hearing the statistic years ago that in order for the whole planet, for every person, all 8 billion people on the planet, to enjoy the same standard of living that I enjoy, that we enjoy, right? We'd have to have 7 Earths. 7 Earths, 7 whole planets, right? 6 ones in addition to this one without any other people living on them, right? And like that just stopped my mind, right? I was like, oh no, now what? Right? It turns out that even one Earth isn't sufficient for us in developed countries, so-called developed countries, right? To continue on the way we're doing without taking the whole planet down with us, right? So it's so sobering, right? It's a lot to take in. It's like the end of the world has moved from something very theoretical and far off to something that feels much more palpable. And I just want you to pause for a moment, and I want you to notice what's arising in your body as I talk about this. Notice what's arising in your body. Yeah, take a few breaths with that. See if you can accompany yourself in this without judgment, noticing what's arising, Maybe there's numbness, maybe there's fear, maybe there's anger, right? Just noticing. Maybe there's overwhelm, right? And see if you can accompany yourself in that with your breath. And so we're going to work today with this idea of how this relates to our Buddhist practice, how this relates to our mindfulness practice, right? There's this way in which unconsciously, so many of us, we've been deeply conditioned to think that our society, our developed society, is somehow better than other societies in the world, right? But we know right now, we know like it's not, it doesn't really make sense for us to think that we're better than people who are living their lives in a more sustainable way, right? Closer to the earth in partnership with nature, right? Are we ready to let go of the idea that developed societies are somehow better than more sustainable societies, right? But then what's next, right? Do we have to condemn developed culture? Do we have to think that other people are better than us, right? And I don't know, but I also, right? So we think of people as being worse than us, think of people as being better than us, and then this might be true for you as well, as somebody who's grown up like in an American, democracy of sorts. I have a very strong, ingrained conditioning around trying to see everyone as equal, right? That other people are the same as me, right? And this comes up in so many contexts. But I want to share with you what the Buddha taught about this type of comparison on an individual level and on a cultural level, right? And he's using the word conceit, but you can also think about it as comparison. Conceit as comparison, conceit as like having an eye that you compare to other things, right? And so this is from the suttas. It says, what are the three kinds of conceit, right, or comparison that need to be abandoned? And the first one is comparison itself. The second one is the inferiority complex or self-disparagement. And and then the third one is arrogance or smugness, right? A sense of superiority. It says these are the three kinds of conceit to be abandoned. And so the Buddha said, and the Buddha went on to say in the suttas, right? It's really important for us to give up the idea that we are better than or worse than or even the same as other people, right? That's pretty, whew, I don't know about you, but like that's a lot. That's a lot to ask, I would say. And so the good news about this, to be fair, is that it's said in the suttas that this comparison, thinking ourselves above or below or the same as other people, is one of the last self-concepts that falls away right before enlightenment. So be patient with yourself, right? There's no pressure, right? But it's really good to notice for yourself, right? What are groups of people that you feel are better than you, right? Who do you perceive as being more virtuous than you? And it's an interesting question, right? That we don't talk about very much, even though there's lots of hierarchies in our society. Right? Maybe you think of activists as being better than you, or people who are more powerful, or more adventurous, or more successful, more educated, people who have more followers, right? People who are more talented in some area, right? People who are more recognized. And so just notice that for yourself, right? Who do you think of as being better than you? And without judgment, without judging yourself about it, just like, oh, that's interesting, huh? Like we're getting curious about our own, inner workings. And then what groups of people do you think that you are better than, right? Consciously or unconsciously, right? Sometimes it's people who are poorer than us, or maybe it's people who are richer than us, right? Hmm. Maybe it's people who don't recycle, right? People who throw trash in the park, right? People who don't meditate. right? Interesting. People who vote on the opposite side of the political spectrum, right? Mean people, people who drive a certain kind of car, or maybe here's an interesting one. See if you can feel into this one. Maybe you feel like you're better than people who think they're better than other people. Hmm. Right? It starts to get really subtle, right? We start to like, it's so interesting with this because we start to see through the tendencies of our own minds. And then, right, what groups of people that you think of as the same as you, right? Who you think of as your peers, maybe people in the same neighborhood who have the same job, maybe people who are the same age or people who grew up in the same place. And this one I think is also subtle, right? It's like, who do I think I'm the same as? And there's a way in which it kind of stops my mind because, on one hand, like I recognize there are all different kinds of people, right? With all different kinds of experiences, and none of us are exactly the same. And yet my mind likes to think of us as the same because of this sort of equalizing factor of like, my democratic background. I want everyone to be treated with equity, right? And so just pause and notice this, right? Just and be really gentle, right? Oh, this is where this shows up, right? Better than, worse than, the same as. And I want to share with you one of the things that's hard for me about this is that, you know, we can point at where the problems are, but where do we head, right? Where's the direction that we want to head in? Where's the direction that we want to go? Or at least, how do we want to meet what's happening? And I really love, I don't know if some of you have read Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's another really wonderful book. And in it, she describes the characteristics of, she's indigenous from the Haudenosaunee people. And she describes the characters of the wild herb plantain, so not the banana like fruit, right? But plantain, the herb that grows on the ground. And it has round leaves, and also sometimes it has like long thin leaves. And she talks about wild plantain, the herb. She talks about it as a good metaphor for the naturalization of those of us who are not indigenous to Turtle Island, right? Turtle Island as in, right, North America. It's said that plantain, the little seeds of the plantain herb, arrived from Europe on the boots of white settlers. But instead of taking over and causing harm, like being a invasive non-native species, it provided healing functions. It coexisted well with the native plants. It grew where other plants didn't. And to this day has shown itself to just be a really useful and humble herb. And so she sees this as an approach that we who are settlers on this land can undertake, right? Can we be humble? Can we be useful? Can we learn how to coexist well? And to just notice, like, how does that land for you? Right? How does that land for you? The idea of being humble and useful and learning how to coexist well. And like, what does that mean? Right? How do we fit in without taking up too much space? And I think that this question of humble is a really interesting one because it's something that was really built into the way that Buddha set up the Sangha, right? The original Sanghas, the communities of um, humility and humbleness wasn't itself like, as a virtue, but it's built into the monks, like giving up all of their clothing except their robes, right? Only asking for food, from morning to noon, only having one bowl, right? Not having any possessions, not owning, any land, right? And so this humility, right, of being able to show up in the world with that sense of not taking up too much space. And so I want to ask you, right, just to feel in for yourself, right? What does it mean to you to be humble? And what are the associations with that word too? Because they're not all good, right? Especially the word like humility can have like pretty negative associations with it. But notice, what does it mean to you to be humble? Do you have aversion to that? Are you like, yeah, that seems like a good thing? Do you have like past associations with it? And notice also what makes it hard for you to be humble, or what makes it hard for you to even like embrace the idea of humility. And so to me, this working with this idea of like the plantain as an herb, it gives us a way to step into, right, everything that's happening right now, right? How do we step into all of the disruption, right? Equanimity with the disintegration, is the theme today. And I think that this way of showing up as the wild herb plantain, right, embodying those qualities can be something that can support us. And then for our practice today, we're going to work with this right? So in daily life, right? How do we work with this mindfulness of not putting ourselves down, right, below others, not putting ourselves above others, and even letting go of like thinking of the self as equal to others. And there's an emptiness in that, right? That's one of the deep, profound teachings of Buddhism, right? It's like if there's no self identity that we're hanging on to, there's no way to compare ourselves to anyone else. There's no self to compare anything to, right? And so this goes to some of the most profound teachings. And then the other piece of this, and something that we can work with as a daily practice as well, is equanimity practice. And equanimity practice is really that place of coming into a willingness to be present with what's happening, to feel into the spaciousness of it and the intimacy of it at the same time. I like to think of it as being both the forest and the trees simultaneously, right? And so, but there can be a really beautiful equanimity practice in embracing this humility as well. And so I'm going to give you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some phrases that I like to use and that I'll and that I want to invite you to just listen to, just feel into how they land. And then I want to invite you into creating a phrase for yourself that encourages you in this direction of the wild plantain, right? Being humble, being useful, being taking, not taking up too much space. Um, and also that embodies that sense of not putting ourselves above or below or even thinking of ourselves as the same, right? And so this is the practice that we're working with today. And then we're going to actually practice with some of those phrases. So let me share with you. There's a beautiful phrase from Ruth King that I think is really softening. She says, "May I see the world and myself with kind eyes. May I see the world and myself with kind eyes." And I'm just going to put this right into the chat so that you can see that. May I see myself and the world with kind eyes. And then some phrases that I'm working with myself in my equanimity practice. Are, may I soften my tendency to compare. May I soften my tendency to compare. May I be patient with the conditions that create comparisons in my mind and in the world. May I be patient with the conditions that create comparisons in my mind and in the world. Right? And there's something about that. It's acknowledging that I haven't created these conditions that, cause the comparisons, right? And so there's a gentleness to that. because this isn't about creating more judgment for ourselves, right? May I be humble, useful, and right sized. May I be humble, useful, and right sized. And then this last one is, may I let go of deeply conditioned arrogance. May humility come and fill its place. May I let go of deeply conditioned arrogance. May humility come and fill its place. And so I put those phrases into the chat for you to look at, but I want to give you a few minutes to explore for yourself, to try writing out a few phrases for yourself. Some equanimity phrases that embody this willingness to explore, right? Letting go of comparisons, letting go of feeling above or below or even the same as. And so we'll take about 3 minutes, and I'll play a little music. All right, go ahead and come back. Oh, here, let me turn my original sound off. Go ahead and come back. And I'd love to, if you're open to sharing, I would love to hear some of the phrases that you came up with, if you came up with phrases. Because in the practice that we're about to do, you're always welcome to use the phrases that I provided or anything else. But if you feel up for sharing a phrase, I can share with you a phrase that a friend of mine came up with in response to this prompt. Um, put it in the chat. So you can put your phrase in the chat if you'd like. My friend Eve, her phrase was, "May I be kind and compassionate to the parts of me that have struggled." You're also welcome to raise a hand and unmute to share if you'd like. Oh, great. Thanks, Brittany. May I see the world with a curious heart. Oh, I love that. I love the idea of a curious heart. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. I'll give folks a chance to type a little bit more too. Jana, maybe curious and balanced with the reality of what is right now. Oh, that's beautiful. That's a really lovely equanimity phrase. Jennifer, may I treat all beings and the earth with respect. Yeah. Yeah, that's so important to remember, like, you are also all beings, right? I am all beings as well. So when I'm invoking all beings to remember, right, I'm offering it to myself too. Yeah, thank you. Oh, I missed Allison's. May my body be a vessel of expansive love. Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Uh, may I be humble, useful, and a loving present to all. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. A loving presence to all. Yeah, thanks. Oh, these are great. Thanks so much, folks, for sharing. Um, these are beautiful. So let's go ahead and practice a little bit with these. So I want to invite you to pick just one or two phrases that land for you. And it's not about like picking a phrase that's perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to like, you know, have exactly the right phrasing, but you're just exploring it and you're going to explore how it lands in your heart. So the way our practice will go is um, we'll start out, we'll do just about like 5 minutes or so um, of just Vipassana meditation. And then we'll go into like 5 to 7 minutes of equanimity. And then we'll go in back into about a few more minutes of just Vipassana meditation. So we'll have our quiet mindfulness practice on either side of the equanimity practice. Does that sound good? All right. So go ahead and find a comfortable position for yourself. It can be lying down, it could be sitting, whatever makes sense for you. Let yourself settle in, let yourself feel wherever your body is touching the earth. Maybe it's your feet or your legs, maybe your back. Wherever your body is touching that quality of support. That's our earth quality that we're rooting into. Wherever your body feels supported, feels that foundation under you, let yourself rest into that. I'm going to go ahead and ring the bell to have us begin. And notice your breath. Notice how your inhale lifts and expands your chest and your belly, and how your exhale lets your chest and belly soften and release. Maybe your breath is clearer through the back of the throat, through the nose, along the upper lip. Wherever you notice the breath most clearly, let this be the place you return to, bringing you back into the sensations of the body, sensations of the breath, arriving home. And notice what's here. Thoughts will arise, and see if you can be so gentle towards them without judgment, without giving yourself a hard time. You just gently notice them. And with so much friendliness, you accompany yourself back to the breath, back to these sensations in the body, back to this moment. Letting yourself rest into the awareness of this breath, the inhale and the exhale. I invite you to bring in your equanimity phrases. It can be nice to bring them in on the breath. Inhale in a phrase that resonates for you. Maybe may I soften my tendency to compare. And on the exhale, offering that intention out into the world. Inhale in, may I be humble, useful, and right sized. And exhale that out and offering a gift to the world. Invite in that equanimity phrase. Let it ride the breath. Notice how it lands in your heart, in your body. Notice if it helps open you to a space of both that spaciousness and that intimacy. Keep offering yourself that breath. Let the phrase be carried on the breath. And if you'd like to continue working with that phrase or move to a different phrase, you're welcome to. See if you can keep returning to the phrase. If you lose the thread of it, invite it back in. Let it wash over you, let it wash through you. Let it meet you where you are. And now I invite you to let go of the equanimity phrase or phrases, to invite yourself to arrive back in the breath. To rest into the simple movement of the breath in and out of the body. to keep lovingly inviting yourself back to this moment without judgment, without making yourself wrong. Gently guide yourself back to the sensations of the hands, sensations of the body resting on the earth, sensation of the breath, keeping you alive. And yeah, feel free to stretch if there's any stretching or movement that would feel comfortable for you in your body. And I just want to invite you to notice, right? Notice what arose for you. Notice how the equanimity phrases landed for you. And I would love to hear, I would love to give you a chance to share. If you have any questions about equanimity, if you'd like to share how the practice landed for you, if you'd like to share anything about what's easy or hard, thoughtful about being humble, about inviting in that phrase. I know it can be complicated. I'd love to hear from you. How's all this landing today? Feel free to raise a hand. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, Jana, go ahead.
Thank you, Kimber. Hi. Hi, everybody. Well, it further solidified the ability to have peace within, even when there's lots of feelings and emotions um, stirred up. Um, and so it's like I had that moment of, oh, there you are. Like there's the part of me that's peaceful and has equanimity. It ebbs and it flows, and that's all part of it too. But yeah, it was very helpful, especially that remembering the curious part. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jana. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the curiosity part of it is so, so important, so helpful. There's something just so gentle and sweet, I think, about curiosity as well. Yeah. Yeah. Question from a participant. Love the phrase right sized. Sounds like a good idea relating to equanimity. Can you expand a bit on what being right sized means to you in this context? Yeah, thanks so much for that question. So, there's a lot of different ways to think about this. And I'll give you the example for myself. I work in, especially in my meditation teaching and work, I work in a number of different BIPOC majority spaces. And one of the things that we're encouraged to do as a white person that I'm encouraged to do is to be sort of right sized of it's sometimes it's phrases like move forward, move back, of like knowing when my positionality takes, has a tendency to take up a lot of space in the room. And so to move back a little bit, but also to not move back so far that I'm just a fly on the wall, because that can feel invasive too, of like not like just observing and just watching from a distance can also feel like I'm not really participating. I'm not really part of the group, right? So that's one example. Um, Another example, in our daily lives, is like, settlers on this indigenous land. To be right sized might mean, right, that I'm not going to be like, you know, um, grabbing lots of property, right? I'm not going to be like a big, like, like trying to take like more property than I need for myself to live on. It might mean, there's a lot of different ways that we can think about it in the world of one of the things in hospice modernity that comes from the indigenous wisdom is accumulation causes scarcity. I was like, ooh, that's a really interesting thing to think about. Accumulation causes scarcity, right? And so, like, how do I really look at my life and how I show up in a world that isn't about grasping, that isn't about accumulating, right? And this is really good for Buddhism too, right? Because one of the precepts is about non-grasping, and like, how do we show up in the world that isn't about grasping? And so I think that being right sized is a really interesting, question for each one of us. Like, how are we right sized in the world? Of both where we're showing up and we're being authentic and we're present and we're a participant and we're also not taking up too much space, right? We're leaving space for other people to come in and offer their gifts. Oh, from Carrie, hoarding totally makes sense because you can't use it all, so it's wasted. Yeah, yeah. I think we have time for one more share. If anybody else wants to share, like how this is landing for you, would love to hear. From Allison, experience wanting to quit and run away, pick up my phone and do something else. Keep racing to avoid taking responsibility for calmness of mind and spirit. Aw, thank you, Allison, for sharing that. That is so real. It is so real. And it's really like this is one of the things that and there's a skillfulness in this too, right? A discernment. And like you're totally, the fact that you're noticing this is huge because most people have that sensation of like, I want to get away from this. And then they just go away, right? But the fact that you're noticing it is so great and so amazing. And there is like this discernment of like sometimes there's so much difficulty and pain and suffering that we are taking in from the world that our nervous systems just aren't ready to hold. And actually, it can be really skillful sometimes to just do something to like take care of ourselves, to like, play a game or watch a comedy, something like that. And but then if it gets to the place where it's like we're just going to that every time instead of feeling any discomfort, then it's a problem, right? But but then also, right, that sense of like, can I learn to sit with the discomfort? Can I learn to breathe with it? Right? That's such an important part of our practice. And you did that here. Great job. And really, and also that thing of like noticing that coming up and being like, oh yeah, I really see this tendency to want to like run away or numb or, just not think about this. And to be able to like sit and be with it is really powerful and it really builds our equanimity actually. So yeah, thank you. Thank you to everyone. And I'll share with you one thing is that when the Buddha would go to a new lay community, when he was like traveling around, the countryside with his sangha, the very first teaching that he would give them wasn't the Four Noble Truths, and it wasn't equanimity, it wasn't mindfulness even. The very first teaching that he would give a new lay community was on generosity. And generosity is actually a really profound teaching. It's a profound teaching on letting go, on sharing, right? Not accumulating, right? Of releasing and being able to make an offering to the community. And so I want to share with you that today I'm not being paid to be here. That I'm really happy to freely share the teachings. And there's a beautiful way in which because I'm able to offer the teachings because of the ways that I've supported my teachers before. And so the invitation is to just like we're receiving these teachings 2,600 years after the Buddha's, passed away, is that we have the opportunity to continue these teachings into the indefinite future. And so any offering that you would like to bring for that, I would be so grateful for. There's also many other types of offerings as well. And yeah, just so grateful to be here with you today.